There's something a little spicy I've been having on my mind recently. I don't think it's worth engaging with people realistically because a vast majority of people do not engage with reality. This is quite a weird concept to even say out loud, but I feel like when I explain it, you're gonna kind of get a more comprehensive understanding of what I mean. I think the average person's day to day life is filled with so much unadulterated delusion that it's not unfair to say that most people live in a world of their creation as opposed to the actual world that they live in. I think we could see this most clearly with MAGA, Trump supporters, and a lot of honestly in general, just like people that are ideologically captured or compromised, or people that have fallen victim to propaganda, or the people that are most easiest to see this with. I live in Georgia, very close to Atlanta. So I know anybody that's in the same area, or a lot of my peers already know off rip what I'm trying to describe. But just in case you haven't been in the South, or maybe you're not politically inclined, the amount of obfuscation and self delusion and convincing that the average Trump supporter has to do to maintain those beliefs completely dismisses them from my mind as a rational being worth engaging with. You know what I mean? And that's not saying that there aren't Trump supporters that are smart. That's not saying that there aren't people of any side, of any belief, that are dumb. I personally really enjoy debates, political debates. I watch a lot of Dean Withers, and he's changed minds. There are rational people on either side of the spectrum that can be swayed to a side of reason. You know what I mean? There's extreme beliefs on the left just as much as there's extreme beliefs on the right. And I think the more and more I interact with these extremists, the more and more I see of the world and the mindsets that it could produce just out of sheer brutality of the world, just out of sheer, just growing up and being like, damn, this is what I believe and nobody else could tell me about it. I would be inclined to say that 70% of the people you interact with on a day to day basis aren't living in the same world that you're living in. Just straight up. Like, they don't see people the same way you see people. They don't see buying things the same way you see buying things. They don't see interacting romantically the same way that you see interacting romantically. And that's not me saying that people don't engage with reality and the only person that knows reality is me and I'm the arbiter of reality and I truly understand everything that's going on. I'll tell you first, I'm a fucking idiot. You know what I mean? I'm not the wisest person. I think I'm pretty smart. I think I'm pretty wise. I think I'm very well spoken. But at the end of the day, there's a lot I could learn. And there's a lot I hope I do learn throughout my life. I'm always open to that. But I just feel that sometimes you have to lie to people and make them feel safe in their form of reality, as opposed to fighting them to see your side of reality. And it's sad in a way, you know what I'm saying? But it's not like malicious. And that's something that I also want to clearly communicate. Just because you're not engaging with somebody realistically or in a way that you would find authentic to yourself doesn't mean that you don't respect them as their own individual. It doesn't mean that you see them as lesser than you or a fool to believe what they believe. Like, what I'm trying to communicate with you guys is that so many people are not stuck in their beliefs, but just so entrenched in their own way of thinking, their own pathways. Somebody described this to me the other day, and I think I really agree with it, where it's like your mind is kind of like a freshly snowed upon let's just say like a mountain range, like a ski range, right? Where a lot of people snowboard and do the skis down and, all that type of stuff. After a while, and you see this in nature as well with walking trails, there are natural grooves and ways that form around certain rocks, certain obstacles, and your mind builds these pathways of what you're supposed to do in a given situation. If a tree comes up, oh, well, most people go the left way around the tree. Let's go the left way around the tree. And I think that's very similar to how neurons in our brain work, where it's quite literally just proven through science that you are inclined to do what you usually do. That's why addictions are such a huge thing. Once you get that spark of those neurons touching that, hey, me doing crack equals me having a good time, then the linking of you having a good time can't be separated from having crack. I personally haven't really dealt with those issues, but I could see how it could form, is what I'm trying to say. When somebody in this metaphorical snowscape, the ski lounge of their mind, has these grooves so deeply tied and so deeply set aside, how can you come in with a bulldozer and flatten that out? How can you come with Saharan desert sun and melt that snow? In my opinion, I would say that's not possible. Not that nobody could change, not that it's not possible to change people's beliefs or how they act about certain things, but I think just on the basis of changing their core principles and tendencies of how they react to things and what they want to do, I think that's one of the hardest things you can ever try to approach with somebody. I was working an event for my uncle. He has a concessions business and he has a lot of contracts with different colleges and stuff. I look up to him a lot. I really love him and he's given me a lot of opportunities. I was helping him out with an event over this past weekend and I'm just chilling out by a little cart, catching a little air, watching some football games. And this football dad walks up to me. I think he had like a son or maybe like a sibling or something in the game, and he walks up to me, doesn't say hi, doesn't say hello. He's just like, "You're Christian, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then he's like, "Now look at me, son. Are you born again?" Absolutely. Yes, sir. Yes, I am. Because it's like the vibes are just so insane. And then he's just like, "Isn't God just like the greatest thing ever?" I'm just like, "Absolutely. Amen. Yes, sir." And I shook his hand and he went on his way. That's not somebody you can engage with in reality. Like, I'm sure he's a pretty chill guy. I'm sure he could grill a mean steak. But it would have been the dumbest thing ever for me to look at him and be like, "Well, sir, I've actually been having my own doubts on religion recently." Like, if he was like, "Are you born again?" Or you like, "Do you agree that God's a great?" If I was just like, I think it's really debatable if you look at historical text and just the things that they claim as opposed to the things that we could prove throughout history and documents and whatnot. No, like that's just not to me. That is not an option. I can't be a rational thinker and claim to be somebody who's smart with social situations and say that that's a good play. It's just not. And I think that experience, among many, many others, have helped me realize that you cannot engage with everybody in a serious, straightforward way. And it sucks, I don't mean to devalue people or depersonalize them, make them seem less human or less viable as a real living, breathing experience to interact with. But at the same time, you have to hear certain conversations and certain clues of what they give you and just say, "You're not in a place for me to be able to engage with you with what I truly think. I'm not in a place to truly engage with you on what I truly think." Sometimes you just gotta let that battle pass so the war can go on. And I just find that very interesting. And if you haven't given this concept much thought, or if you have questions on why social situations struggle with you added to the mix, or what's going on with my social life, or certain things like that, I would say think about this. Think about whether or not the people you interact with can handle the things that you can say. Think about if you can handle the things that they say. Just be smart about things and treat everybody with dignity, respect, and open mind. But sometimes you just gotta lie to people's faces, man. I don't know what to tell you.